Good evening and welcome to the October 1st meeting of the Historic District Commission in Portsmouth. We have a pretty short agenda tonight, so hopefully this meeting won't go too late. The board's action in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or will be deemed waived. I'll introduce our commission. Tonight we have, my God.
Larry Booth.
Larry Booth. I've never done that before. I'm so sorry, Larry. These are our alternate.
It's still me a few years later. I'm still
I
here.
know. And Susan Strauss, our second alternate.
Good evening.
Dr. Dan Brown, I think, is coming tonight, so he might be running a few minutes late. Martin Ryan is not here this evening. This is our vice chair, Margot Doring.
Hello.
I'm the chair, Reagan Rudig. This is Isaac Gilbo from the planning department.
Good evening.
We've got Rich Blaylock, our city council representative,
Good evening.
David Adams,
Good evening.
and Joy Kurth.
Good evening.
All right. So we'll start out with our approval of minutes from last month. Does anybody have any notes or changes or comments?
No, no.
Can I get a
I'll
motion then?
move to approve. Second. Accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. We have 9 administrative approvals. Is there, before I go on though, we do have a couple postponements. Work session A is work session requested by Greg and Laura Ludes, owners for property located at 124 State Street, for a detached garage. This has been postponed several times, and I think it is sort of at our limit of postponements, so I would.
I'll make a notion to deny the request for a postponement.
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So if they continue the project, they'll have to come back and apply again. We also have a request to postpone for work session by Double MC LLC, owner for property located at 134 Pleasant Street. So this is the big Pleasant Street project. They are requesting to postpone till next month.
Make a motion to approve the postponement request.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Okay. Are there any, people looking ahead, are there any recusals for administrative approvals or any that you would like to pull out?
Yes.
I have one on Marcy Street. I think it's too close to my house. I've been notified before, so I'm going to stand back.
Okay. Anybody else?
Like 112 Newcastle Avenue and 101 Chapel Street, I think will require some extra discussion.
Okay. I have to recuse myself from 64 Mount Vernon Street, so we'll just take all of those one by one. So if you would like to step in to run
Want to start that?
Mount Vernon Street, and then we'll
Sure.
go through.
Okay. So for 2 seconds, I'll be in charge here. Would you like Isaac to run us through the request on Mount Vernon Street?
Yes, 1 second, just getting that up. We have a slightly new computer here, so I'm just figuring out the controls. Okay, so this project has been before the commission. It's essentially for, well, what was to be a secondary structure for just housing tools or just housing stuff, has now going to be turned into an ADU. So there are a couple of changes the applicant is proposing in order to kind of make that into a better livable space. So the proposed changes, on the east side, they would replace the barn doors with new in-kind custom wood barn doors, and those would be from a local specialist. Number 2, they would replace the single second floor window with a pair of side-by-side windows. That would just allow more sunlight, again, just for the livability factor. On the west side elevation, they would request to opt out of building the chimney. And they would like to change the first floor window to a door. And they would like to change the second floor window to a double window, which would match the east side elevation at that point. Let's see. And on the north side, they would request to not build the approved porch. And no changes to the south side. I know that the applicant was just here, he had to run home really quick, so if there are any questions, may have to table this to the end, but if there are no other questions, I would look for a motion.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, we can have a motion to approve or deny, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Rich.
I will second.
Dave, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Vice Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Okay, so then I guess we'll just go right down the list. We'll go to number 4, 235 Marcy Street. So the applicant here, again, has been before the commission for a major renovation and expansion of the property. They were back for a couple of additional admin approvals in the last few months. This particular administrative approval is to change the rear addition footprint ever so slightly. It's actually to just decrease it in size. And then they have a window placement change. And as you can see on the sheet here, the top was the previously approved elevation, and the bottom shows the window changes moving from the right side to the middle. And those do align with the upper level. And then the changes to the footprint are shown here. And so they've just reduced it by a couple of feet. Any further questions on this particular change?
I'll make a motion to approve 235 Marcy Street.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. I should mention who is voting. Both of you at the moment are voting, so just to make that clear, because we're missing 2. So, okay.
Okay, so why don't we keep
What were
moving?
the other 2 that you wanted to pull out? were-
112
Yep.
and 101.
So we'll move right on to item number 7. That will be 112 Newcastle Avenue. The applicant was here last month for about 4 or 5 changes to the property. One of them was to remove one of the 2 existing chimneys on the property. We were able to approve the other items. We asked that the applicant come back with a either different option for the chimney removal or to opt out of that. So they have opted to submit for a faux chimney. This chimney would be in the exact same location as the one that's being removed. It would be the same size in all dimensions. And if possible, they would even, like to use the existing chimney cap so that there would be no visual changes. And also, if possible, they would be willing to actually slice the existing brick and use that as a veneer. So it could even potentially have the same effect as the existing chimney. I know that we've talked about faux chimneys, their construction, their viability. I'm assuming those might be some of the questions that folks have. The applicant is here.
Anyone have any questions?
It's not a question, it's just a concern about taking off a chimney that is, while not being used, is not causing any damage to the property right now. And if properly maintained over the years, would not cause any damage to the property. Where the faux chimneys, we're just seeing so many of them fail, whether it's because they're poorly constructed or the nature of a faux chimney, I don't think we can really say at this point. But once the chimney is gone and a faux chimney is on, it then becomes very, very easy, as we've seen, for people to ask for the faux chimney to be removed. And so in essence, when we go down the road of a faux chimney, we have to consider that we're actually allowing the removal of the chimney possibly in its entirety in the future of the building. So I just think it requires a little more discussion on this property. That's why I wanted it pulled.
Anyone have any thoughts or questions?
I second every word that was said. It troubles me where we're headed. this isn't, I mean, I wonder if it's a decision forced by my desires to see something retained, but it satisfies my actual requirements.
Yes.
Can I just have a clarification for the existing chimney? The structurally is something that's going through the building, and the reason they want it removed is because they want to not have all of that inside, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yes.
There's no way to, so is, pardon my ignorance, but there's, in maintaining the building as a historic building, it's all connected. So you couldn't structurally, if there were a way to stabilize that existing chimney without all the other stuff inside. That's just, that's also a part of what you don't want to have happen.
Right, I mean, you could, it's possible, but it requires all sorts of steel beams on the inside and things, because it's not, you'd have to, you're holding up and stabilizing something up high without without it meeting the ground,
Right,
so.
right.
It's difficult too, and somewhat,
So instead, they put a faux chimney up, which is made of plywood, covered with this veneer, and it doesn't weigh so much, and they don't have to have that internal support. But then we find that the failures.
I think the trick is going to be in flashing it and keeping it watertight, so. Yes, Larry?
I mean, I would agree with what Margot and Dave said about it. And even though our purview's not on the interior, if you're taking out something that is structurally reliable and replacing it with something which we know has a rate of failure, it begs the question, what are you doing in terms of not just the value of the house, but the historical nature of the house, because you're taking out that chimney. I mean, I think it's something historically significant, and there's a lot of things you can do with it, positive.
In my opinion, if I may, to me, it's very akin to replacing your windows. If you have original windows and you replace them with new windows, those new windows will fail at some point. They don't last forever. Whereas the old windows are you can pretty much repair them for much longer than the life of a new window. So similar with the chimney, it will fail. It's not a permanent structure. You can't really maintain it. But we could ask for replacement of a faux chimney in the future too. If this is what our purview says, that we're, if our concern is the exterior look of the building, that seems to be our path. So, does anyone would anyone like to make a motion on one
Move that
way
we
or
approve?
I'll second.
any? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry, we're voting to approve it?
Yes.
No.
Any opposed? Did you, Susan?
I'm sorry.
I just didn't hear your vote.
I said aye.
You said aye. Aye. Okay. Chair votes aye. It passes. Thank you. Okay.
Cyrus, we actually did 64 Mount Vernon first. You're all set. So
We're all good.
if you don't want to stick around. Okay, so the last item that we have elected to move out of our list would be item number 8, which is 101 Chapel Street. So 1 second while I get that up. Okay. So the applicant here had previously come to the HDC for the second half of the solar panel installation at the St. John's Church. We did approve the exact same design as on the Chapel Street side, on the Bow Street side. However, when they were showing these plans to the Building Inspections Department, the Fire Department noted that they would need to have some areas where they could navigate the roof in case of a fire. So with that being said, this new panel array is what they've come up with. It is a little bit smaller than the opposing side, as it allows for space to move above the panels towards the ridge line and beside the panels on either side, as well as directly through the middle. It still retains the rectangular shape that we had stipulated and requested. And it is simply something that was requested by code from the fire department, so.
Any thoughts? It definitely breaks up the plane of it, which is what I think what was so attractive to everyone before, was that it was continuous, and now there's sort of a break in the middle.
Yeah, I think that in our discussion last time, it was noted that the success of the Chapel Street side was, it covered so much of the roof, it almost became a new roof, and therefore became very, very unobtrusive. The minute you start breaking it up, this passageway in the middle, you've defeated that. And this was a hard decision, but it was that continuous nature of the solar array that got me there. This is the side that's more visible, but again, it was that continuous nature. So I'm having a hard time with this new arrangement. I could see if it didn't have the path in the middle and it just had more around the edges, and if that fulfilled the fire department's requirement, I could see supporting it. But this was right on the edge to begin with, and this to me has pushed it over into not there.
Anything else? Yes, Rich?
I think I understand the firefighters' requirements, because if there's a fire in the middle there, they have to get to the top apex of the roof, and there's no other way to get there. But I think this still keeps it symmetrical as possible. This is a huge benefit to this nonprofit, but I think this still keeps it the rectangular, it's still uniform, and it's still symmetrical. So I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second that motion, because as much as I don't care for getting fiddled with and don't encourage people to get one approval and then start working its way back, as we've seen so far this evening, this isn't that big, and it's not it's not being pushed by the owners. I'm going to go with this and just try to say that this is good enough. I mean, yeah, it's good enough.
If there's not any more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, opposed.
Chair is opposed simply because I voted against it the first time, and I don't think it's any better, but, all right, I'll need the gavel for this one. All right.
Okay.
That passes.
All right.
All right, so now let's just start from the beginning, and hopefully we
Yep.
can do a consent agenda type grouping for this.
Yes. Okay, so that will bring us back up to item number 1, which is 500 Market Street. This project was here last month for the installation of a condenser unit. The commission had a couple of questions pertaining to the necessity of the location of the condenser itself on the site, and then also about any exterior line sets that might be accompanying. So I do have answers to both of those questions. They would like to retain the same location that was originally submitted for. They were able to let me know that any and all conduit lines will run directly into the building as shown on this adjacent unit on another building within the same property. And then it will have the screening, as they had mentioned, right here. Oops, wrong way. So and then to answer the question of the exact location being sort of closer to Market Street, simply because that's the exact area of the building that they're hoping to cool. And so if they were to move that somewhere else on the structure, we would then maybe see exterior line sets. So this was in an attempt to keep that portion to a minimum.
Any other comments? questions?
I had one question, unless I drove past the wrong set of these buildings, because they look a little similar.
Yep.
Unit is already in I saw an unscreened unit in what appeared to be this location. Just, I could have been wrong, but my comment,
Certainly look into that.
my,
Perhaps this is the unit.
yeah, and so I, like, a lot of those buildings look similar, so I could have had just from the.
This is the section of the facility where shares the same parking lot with the Chamber of Commerce
Chamber of
building.
Commerce, yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
The giveaway on this one in the photograph is that there's a do not exit sign at the edge of that.
So I thought I was looking at the right building. I could be wrong. I'm not opposed to the installation or the location, but I don't think the standard screening that they've used in other places that are more modern on Nobles Island goes here. A gray, painted, heavily, I think I've been made of 2x6 structure doesn't do it for me on this brick building. Right next to Market Street. So I'm for the installation, I'm for screening, but not that screening. I think we need to pick one of the ones that's on the approved or recommended list.
Okay.
Anybody else have any opinion on it?
I will follow along with that, in as much as taking a good look at it. One of my questions was, are we creating more of a problem by putting screening on this thing? Because it just is going to make it bigger.
I think the gray color might be the problem in that it just will stand out so much more.
I agree. In other locations where they have gray-sided buildings, it may make more sense, but here against the brickwork right on the corner, this being maybe the third or fourth thing someone will see when they get off the highway to come to Portsmouth, I think we could do better.
If it's amenable, we could stipulate that they need to choose one of our pre-approved screening options and that it remains unpainted,
Better.
if that's helpful.
Raw wood?
Raw wood. Yep.
Yes,
Or
there-
some kind of low year-round evergreen vegetation, in front of it. than
instead
just-
of, I don't think there's room.
Not enough room?
It's not, it's.
That's what I was trying to-
There's a fence there, or maybe it's not within the fence, but,
Looks like you could.
There's
Yeah, space.
some room around it.
I like the
Or
green idea.
painting it the trim color. There's this,
Well, it's going to be between the tree and the building,
Yeah.
right? As I look at that.
are you thinking wood screening and vegetation, or just vegetation?
No, I was just saying if you, because I agree with what's been said that the wood screening, particularly gray in color, is going to just highlight the fact that thing's there. It'd almost be better if it was red. I don't really mean that. But if you had evergreen or something like that, because they've already got like the garden on the left-hand side there, the plantings, around where the fire hydrant is. They've got the tree. I'm just saying if they had something like something that doesn't grow fast, like boxwood, where you can control the height of it, control the width. If you had something like a couple boxwood plants there, perhaps that would do some natural screening and you couldn't see it.
I really like that idea. I think it would really mask it and you wouldn't even know it was behind there as opposed to having a screen on it. That's just gonna actually draw your eye to it.
Yes.
And it would kind of extend, like you're talking about, like what's in the front and just bring it around. You wouldn't even notice.
I'll just point out that we have stipulated actual wood standard screening before simply because what if a plant dies? You have to you have to make sure you put the right thing in there. It's not really our purview to stipulate they have to put a certain species of plant right there. And it could just be cut down or die. And
Sure.
so, but I agree that it, would certainly blend in better. So,
Could we make a recommendation on the standard screening and recommend putting greenery?
do both. Sure. Any, all right,
Any other?
Um,
Okay.
where's your stipulation? Okay, we don't need to-
All right, so we'll move on to item number 2, which is 2 Market Square. The applicant here has recently taken over a storefront. They are redoing the signage on the front band here. That doesn't necessarily need to come to the commission as it does not require Board of Adjustment approval. However, it's part of kind of the overall package here. So, in order to see the Sea Salt Cornwall sign at night, they are proposing to add some lighting fixtures. And we do have a spec of those here. A little bit hard to see if I can get that bigger. And so it's fairly simple lighting fixture. It is a little bit on the modern side, but they are very thin profile, so probably won't be very easy to see.
Izzy, do you know if they're intending to maintain the awning, and is the lighting going to be underneath? I couldn't quite figure from the schematic where the lighting is actually mounting, but I'm not a schematic expert.
I am not entirely sure about the awning. I almost want to say that they had come before us to actually remove the awning already.
It says it in the drawing, existing rolling canopy to be removed
Yeah.
on the right-hand side.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that will bring us down to item number 5, which is 139 South Street, unit number A. This project was also here last month for a couple of changes, and they have just a few more. So they are seeking approval to change the previously approved Marvin windows to the LePage brand. Those would be aluminum clad windows, and also the French door. They would like to revise the mutton patterns in the new windows and the new French door to match the rest of the main house. They would like to change 2 atypical replacement windows in the back with 2 matching square awning windows. And they would also like to rebuild the access panels to the area below the front deck. So we can see the change in windows here, and then the access panel as well. Any further questions on that? Okay. That will bring us down to item number 6, which is 50 Austin Street. This project was before us a few months ago. It had actually lapsed in approval, so they had to come back for a new public hearing. What they're asking for today is to go from the originally approved Marvin windows and door to the Anderson E series, which is a wood window with an aluminum exterior, aluminum cladding. All the windows will be the exact same size, same mutton pattern as was approved originally, with the exception of one particular window. And excuse my scrolling. So in the original drawing, these windows were intended to be different sizes. One was a full-size window, one was a window next to the door. With the new change in windows, they would just like to actually match those 2 sizes. So the one window would decrease 6 inches in width. And that is shown here. So they would modify the window on the left to match the window on the right in size. Okay. And then that will actually bring us down to our last item, which is item 9, that's 93 State Street. This project has been before the commission for a public hearing as well as a couple of administrative approvals. The applicant here is seeking approval to install shutters on the Chapel Street side of the structure that would match the shutters that are installed on the State Street side. They would like to use all same hardware and to match those exactly as is. Any questions on that? Okay. Well, that will wrap up our administrative approval items. I will just quickly go through our list that we have together here, and then you all can vote on that together. So item number 1, 500 Market Street. It looks like we have a stipulation that they can choose from one of our wood screening options and keep that raw, and or they could choose to use a sort of evergreen or some type of a greenery option.
In addition.
I think it was
Or-
an
oh,
addition,
sorry.
not an and/or.
In
Just an
addition
and.
to, excuse me, and.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Item number 2, which was 2 Market Square, unit number 2, I didn't have any stipulations noted. Item number 5, 139 South Street, Unit A, I did not have any stipulations noted. Item 6, 50 Austin Street, did not have any stipulations noted. And last in the list would be item 9, 93 State Street, and I also do not have any stipulations listed.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve all of those?
To approve with the said stipulations?
Seconded?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. All right. Got all the administrative approvals taken care of. All right. So our first public hearing is the petition of Robert and Maureen Holdreth, owners for property located at 69 Wentworth Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure, replace 6 second-story windows as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 109 as Lot 12 and lies within the General Residence B and Historic Districts. So who is here to present this? Are you here to present this one? No. Okay, please come up to the podium.
And then those are some existing.
Okay, thanks. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Maureen Holderith. This
Hi.
is Andrew Young.
Hi there. So I see we have some photographs. We'll just kind of pass around. These are existing conditions of the photo, of the...
Those are existing conditions of the windows currently. They are not original windows.
Okay,
There is also one on the first floor facing my neighbor. You'll see the purple window on the outside. That is a old window, again, not original. And the other windows on the second floor, some of them have been replaced, and then most of the windows on the first floor were already replaced. I don't know why the previous owner didn't do the entire job. I don't know if it wasn't approved or,
I think one of the issues is that we're trying to figure out when those were replaced, and Isaac hasn't been able to find any application
okay.
for that from the
Okay.
previous owner. So
Okay.
how long have you had the house?
just since July 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were just trying to find some background info as
Sure,
to,
yeah.
to answer these questions as to why only the first floor and, you know,
Right.
what are the
Yeah,
conditions?
it's a mystery to me also, so.
Okay. Oh yeah, here's the purple window.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So you said these windows that we're looking at, the ones in bad condition, are not original. Could you
No,
tell-
they're not.
Can you tell
No.
me what they are?
They're a single pane with one mullion running down the middle. They're in extreme poor condition.
Do you know what year they date from?
I don't know the year, probably the 50s, I would think. What do you think?
I was in the 50s, yeah.
Yeah, yep. I would say the 1950s, probably. It's not old glass.
They have metal tracks running down the
Yeah,
sides.
metal tracks, yeah.
They're not 100% wood.
Yeah.
Are they weighted, or they just use the metal tracks?
They use the metal tracks.
okay, so let's see, we were trying to figure out you're sure that of the type of Anderson windows that are in the first floor?
Yeah, we took pictures of the serial numbers on the tops of the windows,
Okay.
matched those up. I gave Isaac the schematics of the windows.
Yes.
We've got those here.
Any other questions?
Basically trying to make the front of the house look symmetrical,
Sure.
clean.
Are you planning on keeping the old purple window?
No.
I would like to replace it for reasons of keeping everything consistent and also insulated.
Okay, just didn't know interesting why that one was saved also. All right, any questions? Oh, sorry, Larry.
So I make sure I understood this. So what is on the first floor is an Anderson 400 new construction or replacement?
Replacements.
Replacement. And what you're pricing out is Anderson 400 replacement?
Replacement windows. yep.
Replacement, okay.
We would love the same exact window to keep it consistent.
Now, the first floor windows, the new windows have full screens,
Yes, they do.
which is kind of another indicator that they were probably put in without a permit, without an approval from us, because we usually stipulate half screens.
Yeah, so typically, I am an old house person. I don't keep screens on the windows unless I need them.
Okay,
I don't like the look of screens covering a window.
Yeah.
For an old house, so I agree with you on that.
so are you going to remove the screens on the
I will
first floor?
remove the screens
Oh,
for
okay.
the season.
Okay,
If I could do half screens at some point, I would.
okay.
Yeah.
So you'd be okay with putting half screens on the rest? on the-
Eventually,
on
if
the
I
other
could
new
find,
ones?
if I could find a way to do it, yeah, if I could order them from the window company, yeah.
It's hard to do a half screen on a 9/6 because it
Oh,
doesn't
right.
meet in the middle.
Right, yeah.
But I'm sure Anderson has a solution for that somehow.
Probably. I mean, I understand where you're coming from on that, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? No? Okay. Great. Well, then I will open it up to the public. If there's anyone from the public wishing to speak to, for, or against this project?
I have no one online, actually.
Okay.
so.
All right. I'll close the public hearing and wait for a motion.
I make a motion to approve. I think it's a quality product. I have some personal experience with this, and your matching,
Bless
your
you.
installation will match what's already in existence on the property. So I think it's consistent with the historical nature of the building, improves energy usage, and like I said, I have personal experience with this, so I think you'll really like it. So motion to approve.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to add the stipulation for half screens, at least for the second floor?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I can try and, I can contact Anderson and
Yeah.
find if they make half screens.
They do. They definitely do.
Yeah, I would love half screens. Well, I don't know why new windows come with full screens. They're a pain in the neck.
I'll second Larry's motion.
Great. Any other discussion? All right. Well, thank you very much for coming forward to us and answering our questions and
Thank
trying
you.
to figure out the mystery. So we
Sure.
appreciate that. Do we get a full findings of fact? We got from Larry, just to make sure. Do we get a full
Sorry.
findings of fact from you? We got, it's
I think I
consistent.
kind of mismatched it, but
Yeah.
I said consistent with the historical nature of the building and the district, consistent with the windows that are already there, and also improving the energy usage of the building.
That's not one of them?
Oh, sorry. I should go back and look at that.
Ability of innovative technologies.
I think it's also compatibility of design with surrounding properties.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
exactly. Thank you.
Great. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, guys.
much. Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, and then our last piece of business is a work session. It's work session requested by Capital Security Financial Services owner for property located at 40 Market Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure, replace the existing front door, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 117 as Lot 30 and lies within the Character District 5, Downtown Overlay, and Historic Districts. All right. Are you here to talk about this? All right. We'll all come to the table so we can talk together for a work session. our our architect, and he's the one who had all of the brought
Professional
up.
doorman. Just kidding.
Right, no. He had a lot of the concerns about the zoning, not zoning, code requirements and things for doors opening onto right-of-way, so we'll try and keep those in mind for our questions. But please please introduce yourself and present your project.
So my name is Leslie Adams, and I represent the building for my mother, Doris Briggs, who has owned it since 1982. She's 86, so for at least 6 years now, I've been doing all the managing and making all the decisions. I brought, because in my application, I had said that I was going to get something from a carpenter. The reason I'm seeking the guidance is because this door, I've been trying to replace this door or approach it since well before last fall. And I can't find a carpenter willing to do a small job like this. I mean, I get one after another so I figured if I could get this part over, which was part of the objection from what I heard, that would make it more amenable. And indeed, I think I have found a carpenter who can do it as well. I just thought a picture might be, a larger picture might be. So there are two antique double doors on the property now. Maybe I'll just wait for you to get those pictures there.
Sorry.
And they're beautiful antique doors, but they have been repaired and rehung several times. And I've been told by 2 contractors now that they can no longer be repaired any further, that there's rot. They've been moved around, the hinges have been moved several times, and that's just not feasible. Except for Joe's Coffee, which is almost exactly across the street, all of the other doors on the street seem to be new wooden doors to me. We would love to do that. Something that we fight is that all of the other doors are recessed on the street. We are the only one that I see on the street that has a flat face. So all the rain comes right down over the door, and there's no help for it. So these antique doors open out, and they're quite saggy. You can probably see that. We would love a new wooden, like a Simpson door that opens in, and as far as we know, that can be done. I would love it if it was wide enough to sort of fit that whole thing, but it looks like the recommendation from the carpenter is that some framing might have to be done because the opening might be a little bit smaller. But I'm here to get guidance from you folks on how to be approved for a new door, which would be more handicap accessible as well. The shop owners almost never open the second of the door. They just open the first one and bolt the other one.
Handicap-wise, so you've got a curb that has to get stepped up, so that really doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean, that just can't be a consideration.
Oh, okay.
Never mind.
I have a question. I actually did walk by today, and they did have them both open to look at them. How come you haven't thought about just recreating them?
I cannot find a good place that has good work in this day and age to create doors like that. I've looked in antique shops all winter and talked to people about that as well, but it just seems that a new door would be sturdier and better a better option for that place. As I said, we're about the only one besides Joe's who hasn't had a new door by this point.
I mean, I had custom doors made when I came through. I could look at my email. I feel like it was Green Mountain, but anyhow, I don't know the exact inset, but I do know that they're in Portsmouth, so I'm not sure.
I would love that
Okay.
information. I really
Okay.
feel like since the pandemic, finding contractors, finding work, I'll spare you the stories, but I've been sort of led on and then been canceled out of multiple times. I can't even imagine, getting.
Yeah, they made 2
Getting
custom,
antique
all
doors.
my doors are custom made by this Portsmouth. I'll look it up right now. But my preference, I'll just speak, I really like these doors, and I think it keeps the historic look of Portsmouth, and changing it, I feel like you lose that, and so I think that my recommendation would be to recreate the doors if they do in fact need to be repaired, but that's my opinion. But I think you are losing some of the historic look that we're here to preserve, so. And that they do match the Cup of Joe doors, you know, I think it is really the charmingness, and I think if they could be recreated, which, then that would be my recommendation in terms of a solution to replace doors if they truly do need to be replaced.
What is the total opening now of the two doors, the width? I was trying
That
to
would
read that, but I
probably,
wasn't-
I was gonna say that Carpenter's report came through today to me, so,
53 and 5/8.
Okay, so that's this measurement down here.
right.
I'm going to throw out a different opinion. As a observer of my wife's business on a different block in the city, I understand and completely respect your desire to go from two narrow doors to one wider door. I see this every day that I help Soraya out, that, you know, people might go out with their arms full of packages they came in with, and then a couple packages that they purchased and they're leaving with. And with a door this narrow, it would just totally impede traffic flow. So I get it. I understand why you want to do it. I understand why it can't open out, because you don't have the recessed entry. So opening in, I get that too. To keep that 53, well, you have it here. You're showing like 8 and 11/16 on either side. That would be a room to do something, I don't know, excuse my wording, kind of historic and kind of cute, like a couple of the buildings over on State Street. And I want to say the one that was the Southern Restaurant Soul, and I can't think what is there now. Yeah.
Mama Luca?
But I think I might be wrong, but I think they have a door like that, where it's one door and then something with lights on the side.
That's what the Carpenter actually said as well. And
And this would give you the full 36 inches you need as a merchant. I mean, I get it, you need it, you really need it.
It has been mentioned at Christmas that coming in and out of those doors, because
Yeah,
they
you
keep
can't.
them both open in the summer, but they don't open them in the winter. Everybody goes in and out of that narrow little door.
Yeah.
And it is difficult for the merchant.
No, I sympathize, and I totally agree with your solution. That a 36-inch door, I would put, like I said, something historic looking on the side with the vertical panes of glass to give you the light. And you're gonna have just as much, if not more light than what you have now, I think, so. And help your traffic flow, help your customers, help your mother. And I think that'd be what I would suggest.
I think it could be very historic looking too, and very aesthetic. The carpenter I've got said he will do, you know, all the molding and match anything that needs to be matched. But I love the idea of sort of transom on the side as well.
Yeah. I couldn't think of that word, sorry.
I think that's the right word.
I think you're right.
I said before, I also sort of mourn the loss of the double doors. They're diminutive, there's no question. One has to aim better to get in a single door. But both of the doors you suggest are operative if the day came that a big thing had to come into the building, the doors are still there. I'm a little concerned about the 9-inch casings that have to go on a door to make it a 36-inch door to provide a normal size opening. I really do appreciate the aesthetic of the old style door. I marvel at these, having made it through the Coconut Grove conversion where they got from in-swinging doors to out-swinging doors. I'm impressed that the city allows these things. But I still don't see the attraction to getting one big door. I think the smaller ones are good. I'm in the business of making things, or I was a time I make doors. I know lots of people that make doors. So it can't be that's the problem. So I wonder, have you just not found that person? You've not.
Not found them, no. I can't find a carpenter.
I'm not going to say,
Carpenter this week.
it's a shame you didn't get luckier.
Nick's Door and Window is who I use, and they made custom doors exactly to my specification when I came through HGNC, and they're in Portsmouth, so.
If you wanted, I could, just for the conversation part of it, I can, tomorrow during the day I will have a door maker that I trained 35 years ago that still makes doors. The Book and Bar's new side entrance, the big mahogany transoms and the rest of that. He still makes a high-quality door. Could pretty much take care of this, but I will have him call you to be certain.
Thank you.
And at least that's help you make a decision, because this is really where I would be leaning to repair those and make them functional.
The framing would still need to be repaired because the framing is as rotted as the sides of the
Understood.
doors.
Understood framing.
Ask a question about, I'm looking at this AC unit that sits up and.
Over the head, yeah.
Could the AC unit be contributing to some of the rot that's going on? Or is
They drip water from condensation all the time, yeah. It's funny that there isn't another way to solve that problem, but
I mean, I already have, my doors have only been in for 6 years, and I can already see some, water damage to it. I don't know that there's just any way around that over time.
There is water that just sheets down the building too.
Yeah.
That awning doesn't stop anything, so.
So I have the same exact issue even on brand-new doors, so it's just kind of, I think.
And as you say, because these are not inset like the rest of the doors, they get that much
I have the same
more of an exposure.
another point is two things. Can I say, obviously I've got an issue. I have an incentive, I have. But this isn't like it's a bus depot where hundreds of people are going in and out. I'm sure you'd love that kind of business, but it's not. It's not like there's a crowd of people pushing and shoving to get through the doors. And an in-swinging door means you lose more floor space inside the building. If you can replace these doors, I'm pretty certain the city can't say you can't do that, in which case you protect the usefulness of a little bit of floor space that the big door won't allow. Just saying, I think there's a trade-off here. I think with the scale of the building and the sensitivity of the installation, it's still an option.
David, can I ask a question? Did you notice that the doorway to the upstairs unit, to the right of this building, it is set back a teeny bit? Is it possible that there's some room in the jamb here so that this could actually be recessed just a tiny bit to provide a little bit of protection from the sheeting water?
If the applicant is correct in her assessment, that there are carpenters have suggested that some of the existing jam material has to be swapped out because it's the end of its life expectancy, then setting it up to be just inside of that wouldn't be that difficult. But
And I think that just gets, even if you get a couple of inches, it's that much more protection from the weather and water coming down. And if you're gonna retain painted doors, which I don't know, and that's not in our purview, painting them very, very regularly is,
Those are old
high
pictures,
quality,
by the way.
high quality paint primer, well done and done frequently, not waiting until it starts to peel, is the best way you can protect your doors.
I can see sort of both sides, and thank you for being sort of amenable to taking all of our perspectives and suggestions. I think you do have fairly unique doors in the historic district, and so I would love to see that setup retained, essentially because these doors have obviously been there for a very long time, so they are part of the historic fabric of the city. So rebuilding them, having them custom done in kind would probably, even if you made those two an in-swinging door, might solve some of your problems in terms of having them, come out just exposes them that much more to the weather and all of that. If it still just isn't feasible and it needs to go to a single door, I was wondering if you could find someone to build you a door bigger than 36 inches. You've got a huge opening there, and there are some huge doors on Market Street. I mean, across the street at, what is it, Kosh, what is the one on the corner of Bow and Market?
Oh, I don't
It's
remember. I
a-
know the one you mean. I know the one you mean, yeah.
It's a clothing store. It has a huge door, and it's a big and swinging door. So I would think that you would at the very least be able to get, a door that would fit, have a nice big door.
The same. I would love that too. I think the wide doors look
Reagan,
quite
the Native Sun Building.
No, across from that.
Oh.
Across the Bow Street.
Where you go down
What,
towards the
Bliss?
Dolphin
No,
Striker.
Bliss, is that what it's called? Yes.
On the corner,
Yeah,
right
yes.
over towards Bliss.
Where you go down.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
fine.
So that, anyway, it's a big glass door.
Yeah. My doors are 98 inches wide, so they built it to brick. So that's, this company can do, and on the flip side, I have a 28-inch door on the apartment side, so definitely can have them built.
Yes, so, so either way, obviously, I think that you're hearing from most of us that we'd love to see this style of door, the double door retained if possible and rebuilt in kind. And so hopefully, we can get you the right information and connections to get that done.
I need to ask, any idea what the cost of creating doors is? I mean, how many?
My cost was before COVID, so I don't know.
How many times more than buying a door?
It's not cheap. I had to do it when I opened up a hallway in our house. Our house was very badly condoed in the mid-'80s. And as I put the pieces back together and made it one house, I was like, nobody in their right mind in the 1700s would have had a hallway with no window at the end. And when I cut into the wall, I didn't find a window. I found an 84-inch door frame. So I had to have doors made. I had French double doors made. It was quite expensive. I think I used Reese lumber for that. Home Depot does the same kind of work. In addition to Nix and whoever else was
No,
there.
Nix is certainly a good local custom dealer.
And I like Mr. Adams.
Yes, if he can
Person
connect
sounds
you,
great, yeah.
that would be great.
Because as important as the door itself, it's the quality of the installation and what they, how they're gonna set the jambs and whether they can move the jambs in a little bit for you. It's gonna be very important to the look, but also to the longevity of the doors themselves. Yes.
All right, any other comments or questions? Do you have any other questions for us?
No, as I said, I'm just looking for guidance so that I know, so that I could get this done. And forgive me if this is not done perfectly, but I'm not a
This is a
contractor,
work
I'm a
session,
teacher.
so it's fine. It's
Can I
here
ask-
just for, yes.
Can I ask a question? It's probably something, Alex, because I don't have a clue. Is there any city code like what we just saw, for instance, with the solar panels for St. John's? Is there any city code like that if you rework a door frame, and I think North Church ran into this, they wanted to make the door we approved ADA accessible or something. Is there any code requirement that she's going to face that in reworking this door, that if she goes from double to single or whatever she's doing, that altering the frame, that she has to meet some certain code requirement for accessibility or anything?
When they did it, I was involved in the Cup of Joe build out, and they grandfather you into those doors. So you don't have to have the same, I think you had to put thing on the top of the door.
I don't know, my restaurant, I've been told if I do 60% or more renovations, then all my grandfathering is taken off. If I don't, then all my grandfathering is still grandfathered in.
Got you.
For something like this, they would grandfather
It
you.
is impossible to be absolutely certain how it's going to shake out, but all in all, the inspections department
Right.
in a 300-year-old city has a certain amount of discretion that they apply on things.
Good.
I've found that actually almost everywhere I've ever gone.
So she's got a lot of flexibility then that she can
But
work
you're
with.
absolutely right, the 60% rule, once you
Okay.
get there, it's over.
I think when you're maintaining a historic thing, I even had, my stairway is too steep, but because of a beam that's historic, they
Yeah.
made an exception. And I was involved in Cup of Joe when they rebuilt it in 2018, and they didn't, they
Perfect.
let those doors stay there when we had construction permits.
Do you have a lot of flexibility then?
Not involved with Cup of Joe anymore, but back then.
Okay, great. Yeah, so, no, but I think it's a good idea to, once you find a carpenter or somebody who's gonna help you out, make sure that they are in contact with the city to make sure, before you get too far down the road, that everything's fine.
So, so that would be a building permit along with the permit here.
Yes, you did.
Which
When you-
comes first?
When you, well, like you can correct me, but when you apply for a permit, it'll trigger, and you're in the historic district, it'll trigger the need for approval from us. If you already have approval from us, then it should be fine.
Yep.
If you are pulling a permit and then they say, no, you have to do it this way, then you might have to come back to us, which is why you should do it at the same time. So,
Any recommendations for carpenters?
Yes.
That, not just for making the door, but for installing the door as well?
I will hopefully provide you with one before you leave. There you go, get John out of
Yeah,
retirement.
there's John Wyckoff, you can try to call him.
right.
A lot in retirement. I've heard a lot in retirement,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's done work in my parents' house,
Yep,
you know, when I was
I'll
10.
send him a text and say,
And Wally, someone too, I forget Wally's last name, but,
You can guarantee it'll be historically correct.
it's done, yes, it will be.
oh, I like that. I live in a 1730s house myself, oldest in town.
He's perfect for stuff like that. He's good.
So did you want to continue the work session so that you have an opportunity to come back with whatever design your carpenter, when you find your carpenter, comes up with?
Yes, so could you tell me a little bit of the procedure there?
Yeah,
Yes.
so we can either continue the work session, which just means you could come back to have another discussion like this, or we could close the work session, and the next time you come back is when you apply for your permit and apply for a public hearing for formal approval. So it just depends on if you think you need another discussion, which it's a door, you could probably do it at a public hearing.
I would kind of like to, the transom and the single door still attract. So I would kind of like to give you, like 2 options and see, see your feedback from that and see if I could convince you. And maybe not, maybe I won't love the sketches of it actually and be like, well, actually. But I know that the merchant before, and there's a new merchant there as of this summer, both would love a single door. They're both not in love with that double door.
Well, the other option you have is you can certainly apply for a public hearing, or a work session / public hearing. So at the beginning, we have a little talk like this, and then we move directly into a public hearing so we can vote on it and give you final approval right then and there.
That might be easier because pretty much we'll have figured it out.
Yeah.
in the
I don't,
work
yeah,
session.
I feel like coming back for a second work session for a door is probably a lot. So we can probably do it all together at one meeting for you.
Wonderful, that sounds very good.
Great. All right, thanks. Is there anyone from the public who wants to chime in on this?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. I'll have a motion to close the work session then.
So moved?
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So, thank you very much. So just be in touch with Isaac for setting up, applying for the work session public hearing, and hopefully we'll get you some good names.
Thank you very much for everyone's time, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Are we staying here to have the
We
discussion?
do have one quick discussion. We can stay here or go back up.
Whichever you guys want, if you're already there.
We're already here.
If you're
We'll just
free,
wait.
just it'll get it
To
done.
start up.
I'll have one of my guys call you.
Oh, you're wonderful, thank you so much. Hit more dead ends, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night. So, do you have the full information about what needs to be presented? But this is just sort of extra, correct. Yes, so this is, sort of miscellaneous discussion here.
Yes. So just to give just another little bit of background, this project, 109 Dennett Street, was before us at the August meeting. They had been in violation for removing siding, and they were going to install vinyl siding. A neighbor had called that in, and we had checked that out. So at any rate, based on that situation, the homeowner is now seeking to be removed from the Historic District Commission altogether. This was presented to the city council, I believe, at the September 24th meeting as just kind of an initial discussion. What resulted from that was that the city council had asked for a recommendation from both the Historic District Commission and the Planning Board. Essentially, what they are asking for is to just take a quick vote on whether you would recommend to remove the property from the district, or if the recommendation would be to deny the removal. They will take that with the planning board recommendation, and then we'll go from there.
So, yeah, this was, I don't know if everybody saw the article in the paper today. So this was a tricky situation, which I never like these, where there are mistakes made and then you end up in a situation that is not good for anyone. I wasn't here for that meeting. Margot chaired it, so I don't know if you'd like to talk about it at all, but yeah, now we're at sort of the situation where it seems like the homeowner is just desperate to find some sort of resolution. And hopefully we don't have to use the nuclear option.
So, the concern I have for the Historic District and Planning Board and the City Council is this question of setting a precedent that somebody who has a situation where they've been denied something in the Historic District, they want to get something done that doesn't fit the district, tries to have the property removed. What next, right? So the next person is not happy with the decision. They happen to be on the edge of the city, the district. Where do we draw the lines? The lines were drawn for where the historic district exists by through a process where properties were evaluated, the boundaries were decided, everybody agreed, and now we sort of have this sort of cherry-picking situation. So if I were a city council member, that would be one of my concerns, is what does this mean for other people? If you make an exception for this one person, what about this person? Do you only make exceptions in the case of financial hardship? Do you only make the exception because somebody made a mistake? I mean, what criteria are you going to use in the future to say this one particular property should be removed? You're not making the argument that the house be removed because it's not historic, which I could see. To say this is a modern property. Why couldn't it be exempt from the historic district? But this is a property that has been in the district from the beginning. This person has lived there for 20 years, knows that, or knew at one point that the property was in the district. It has a lot of redeeming qualities. There's just nothing about this building that screams to me, I don't belong in the historic district. I like to think that there are other options for this person that could be explored. I did ask Sean Clancy about the old CDBG grant program that allowed the city to help the person do the repairs in exchange for a lien on the property, and when the property was sold, the grant was sort of paid back. Unfortunately, that program doesn't seem to exist as it existed then. There may be a different program out there that could be explored. I just think there might be some other options that could be explored with this applicant before we go to removal of the property from the district. Because once it's out, it's out. It's not going to go back in.
Refresh my memory, the address, and do we have like an overlay map with that, where that is?
It's on your computer.
Okay.
It's on an island. It's not.
So it's
the little island on Dennett Street.
109 Dennett Street.
Oh.
And the funny thing about it is that the property next to it has a little, almost like a right-of-way strip of land that goes around it to Prospect Street and kind of makes, but that property is not in the historic district, so it's almost like this is on a little island.
Okay.
However,
But it's on a street that has
It's-
historic district on it.
yes,
Is the home across the street from it a historic home? I drove by there again today and looked at everything again, and I couldn't tell, because it wasn't a plaqued house.
pretty much everything on Dennett Street is historic.
Right.
And-
And then there's, right next to the one that's across the street from it, then there's something, a large building that's set back, with a parking lot in front of it. I couldn't tell if that's a historic building as well.
So
So-
Isaac's got it pulled up
Yeah.
here.
So across the street, it isn't.
Just a
So
little
like
bit-
across
a
Dennett
little
Street, it
further
is
down.
not, right? But then across
So
the
do you- yeah.
Walker Street, it is.
Do you see the red, the maroonish outline?
Right, so the,
Yeah.
so the building that I was looking at today is on.
Just
I
don't
was
touch
looking
the
at
screen.
And so the buildings here, these are not historic districts.
That's correct.
Correct.
Correct. It's not in the district.
Nope.
Correct.
Correct.
But across the street, to the right,
On this
yes,
side
and up to the left, up the screen, that's historic as well.
Right.
So it's surrounded on one,
Where
two,
the front door is.
Yes. It's on Dennett Street.
so its neighbor up the hill that's all in the historic district.
Two of his
There's
neighbors
just-
are, two of his neighbors aren't.
Right.
Okay.
But it was, it was, even though it's got this funny sort of outline of the neighboring property, it was still singled out to remain in the historic district.
Okay.
It is a very historic house, and the owner loves it, as she said, she loves, what does she call it, her little dollhouse or something,
So,
yes.
but the red lines there are delineating the historic district.
Yes.
Why isn't there a red line around her house?
Because there's a piece of property that's owned by a neighbor of hers that carried a non-historic district zone up onto that small side street.
It's green just because Isaac has
That's the
it
search.
clicked. He has it just selected.
But I'll just see what Mr. Adams is saying. So this
Yes.
property is not historic.
Right. Well, it's not in the district.
Yeah.
So it's because of the next door neighbor to the left that they aren't contiguously in the historic district plot. But otherwise, when the historic district was being formed, they wanted to cover both sides of that small street. That's what it looks like to me.
It looks like Mr. Blaylock needs to leave soon. Do you want to give your, do you have?
Yeah, I'm in a tough place because I'm recommending
you're
myself
both.
what to do.
So maybe you don't recommend it.
Yeah, so why don't
Okay,
you guys
so we'll talk.
vote and then
We
I'll
don't need to
find
vote
out
on
on Monday.
anything either. We just agree on a recommendation that we're going to carry forward to
Yeah.
the planning board and then to the city
Yeah,
council.
yeah,
I would just like to share that I
So
think
do you need to take off?
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
I'll see you.
All right. Sorry.
I support what Margot said, and I think you have to think about fairness, right? So in terms of every applicant that comes through the historic district, and they also miss the appeal opportunity, so this is like, let me just go a different angle
Yeah.
altogether instead of going through the proper channel to appeal. So 2 proper channels have been missed now. And I think it's a responsibility we all have as citizens of Portsmouth and we do construction to, just like if you drive down a street and you're doing 80 and you find out it's 35 and you get pulled over, you still get a ticket. You don't say, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was, not that that's ever happened. Doesn't matter. You're liable to what the law is, for lack of better description. And I felt when I asked the applicant how come the building permit intentionally, and the part that made me feel strongly to deny it was they both were very well versed in other cities' permit process. And so I think it's a very simple thing to go online and to find out there's a permit needed and the contractor. So I think it would not be fair, and it's a total bypass to the rest of this process to just remove this property at this point, because these decisions were made that led to this. So I don't think we recommend that it be removed. I'm empathetic as a person, but there's been lots of people in similar situations that didn't then get to be removed and not have to, so.
So where does the final decision rest? Because in today's paper, if I'm recalling correctly, it said something about the mayor being in support of helping this woman out.
This decision will rest with the city council. But it will be through the planning board, because the planning board has purview over
control the
the
maps.
zoning and the maps. So so we need to come up with a recommendation to the planning board with good, sound reasoning for our recommendation to give to them, so that then they can discuss it and put forward their recommendation to the city council.
Reagan, do you see any scenario where if you continued on up Dennett Street, like with houses to the left, do you see any scenario 1 year, 2 year, 5 years from now where Dennett Street as a whole would be in the historic district?
I mean, as a preservation professional, yes, Dennett Street, and in fact, that whole area has already been determined that it would be an eligible district for the National Register. We all know that Dennett Street, for a very long ways, is very historic
Right.
and has great integrity. There are a few new buildings here and there, but all in all, it's,
It also fits into one of the themes that we work on in our historic district here in Portsmouth is working on corridors and putting the most trafficked areas, therefore the most visible areas, into the control of the district, sets a theme for the backwater districts, if you will. And in many respects, that has benefits without burden. And that's what we're clearly all thinking about, is the benefit over the burden. There's a dollar value and a dollar cost. They seem like the same things, but when you're making those decisions for other people, you need to provide a benefit to the burden.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of historic homes. I mean, I drive that street probably 5 days a week, because from where we live is a shortcut over to Hannaford's with the lovely one-lane Maplewood Avenue Bridge. Anyway, so yeah, I'm on that street all the time, and I'll be honest with you, I actually thought the historic district went up a little bit further. So I was surprised. Yeah, I mean, I totally sign on with what you're saying about the corridors and all that. I mean, I think that's a very valid point. I'm trying to remember, there was somebody that was in a financial situation and they wanted to do something with their siding.
That's this person.
And we discussed wood on the strides facing the street, and then allowing them to do something else. Then they came up with a third solution, I think. And then there was also the solution for the blue house on Islington beside the gas station.
Yeah, that was between real wood
Right.
and other
Manufactured wood.
like hardy plank
Right.
and other sorts of things, but it was not a vinyl decision.
Right.
The only place I can think of where we allowed vinyl was vinyl replacing vinyl down on Marcy Street.
Just up from Gates, because there's a flooding problem between two conflicting properties. And the applicant made a very strong pitch for a side of a building that is not really visible, that was getting heavily damaged by no intent of the neighbor, but by the intent of the neighbor's property.
Right.
So there are some exotic solutions. If the problem, if you will, exotic-wise, on this property, I think, is the front facade is on the street. While that doesn't make it part of the historic district, it is visible and highly visible. And the side of the building is actually aiming at the remaining parts of the historic district there. So
Yeah.
there could be one side that, and I just don't see the point. It's too small a house to really have 4 unique kinds of sides or 3 different kinds of treatments. That's just me saying that. My opinion here is that I voted against it because I thought the plastic siding was an insensitive treatment to a lovely little mid-19th century house that needed some help. And we had an applicant that was trying to do something, but it wasn't something that I thought was appropriate. I remain that way, and I've seen nothing to change my mind. And along with that, we now have the situation where if we say, well, make sense for this to not be in the district, which I don't think, it absolutely guarantees that that plastic siding will get put on, which is 100% away from what I wished if it had been in the district. So I don't see how I can change my opinion.
I agree with you, and I think, given the corridor idea, because I remember many meetings ago, we discussed about the corridors going out Middle Street, wasn't it? So I think if we're looking at a scenario where that historic corridor of Dennett, which is not in the historic district, would possibly be in the historic district, then it does not make sense to exclude one house.
To go out of your way to do
It makes no
that.
sense.
Yeah.
But is there another solution that's agreeable? And I don't have an idea. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just what-ifing.
My other bigger concern from the fairness is if this were to proceed that this does happen.
Yeah.
Now you're setting a precedent of, you cannot pull a building permit and do whatever you want in the historic district, and you will be able to continue with that, and that's a big.
It is a very dangerous precedent to set, that if you're in a bind and if mistakes are made and you're not able to do what is the appropriate thing to do, and you just say, hell with it, take me out of the district altogether. And that, that type of spot zoning, we already have an established zoning area here as a district, and to just start plucking them out one by one, even as it is at the edge, I think it doesn't matter that it's at the edge, because as we've said, it is still in a historic neighborhood that continues its context, the historic feel and setting and the sort of flavor of the neighborhood doesn't end with that house. There's nothing different that changes right after that house for the rest of the street. And so I think it would be totally inappropriate just to start cherry picking pieces in and out. When we refined our boundaries a few months ago, we had a methodology, we had a purpose and a reasoning for redefining those boundaries, which was the corridor, and really just clarifying the parcels that border that corridor. And so the reason for taking this out is nothing except financial, and that totally goes against our set intention and reason and purpose for the district. So I think it sounds like we're all in agreement that we would like to recommend to the planning board that they do not recommend removal of this property from the historic district. It's like, I'm not sure how we formally make that recommendation, other than writing down the minutes from our discussion here and giving it to them.
That means we have a
Formal motion?
meeting with them, or,
Yeah,
you know.
I don't know if we need a motion.
It's just something that, we do need a motion and a vote for the recommendation, just in case somebody is opposed or what have you. Essentially, yes, we'll take, we'll write something up from the minutes, stating, you know, your points, Reagan, I can work with you on that. I can send you a draft. And then essentially we will submit that to the planning board for their next meeting later this month.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we, based on the recording of the discussion, we could probably pick up 3 key factors or reasons, and that would be, you know, the precedent that we've discussed, the fact that there's been no demonstration that the building is not eligible or shouldn't be for some reason in the district. And I don't know what the third one would be.
Corridor.
The corridor aspect.
Extending the corridor in the future because of the historic nature of Dennett Street, it wouldn't make sense to exclude one house in the middle of it.
I think that coming up with those 3 or 4 key reasons would probably be the easiest way for the planning board to take that feedback from
Yep.
us, is that this is, like you said, reasoned points to then let them discuss.
Yes, that's fine. And so, Isaac, yes, that would be great if you could draft something up and send it to all, each
Sure,
of us.
sure. Yep.
And we can, as long as we all vote together, if everybody's in agreement. Does anybody have anything else to add before we close it out? Just for the record.
I think we've all said how much we sympathize with this person's dilemma, that, you know, the mistakes were made on the behalf by our contractor. You know, it's just very, very sad that this happened. I have to imagine that there must be some other ways that this person can be assisted. Whether it's in the public sector or in the private sector, there's got to be some way that we can help. You know, that a solution can be found.
Yes.
And if she comes back with a request for different type of siding, that perhaps, you know, somewhere in between a more acceptable, something more acceptable than vinyl, but less costly for her, I think we obviously will hear. We'd listen to that clearly. We've listened to it before. We've made adaptations before. It's just that the vinyl siding was too much.
Isaac, did you interact with her since the August meeting at all? Has there been any?
Only to go over the, you know, like what would be the process if she wanted to be removed from the district, which is you'd have to submit to city council. Other than that, we've not had contact.
She didn't come back and say, what other options do I have, or, okay.
Not at this time.
Deal or anything, okay.
Yeah, I mean, she certainly, even though she missed the appeal process, she's certainly able to come and apply again.
Right.
And we can have another discussion. I think, you know, I wasn't there, so I didn't get to give my opinion, but certainly some sort of a compromise in terms of, even if it is not the perfect solution, to have some of the building be vinyl and the more, you know, visible sides be something else. But I would also hate to see the whole thing covered in vinyl. It would be,
One of the things about the building is it's largely intact. It's not like that the piece that we saw again this evening on Newcastle Avenue that has things that have happened
Yeah.
that are in the way of understanding the building. This building sets just like it was built.
yes, it's very intact.
Having done, I don't know if this helps, but we're in the middle of painting our house and you're looking at the carpenter doing the clapboard repair, me. And the price of cedar is through the roof. Nobody wants to really use the finger jointed.
Yeah.
You don't know how long it's gonna last. Ironically, the most affordable product right now that I found is solid pine clapboard. And if you wanna make it, you know, I don't know, like 100 years weatherproof, I've been putting deck stain on the back of it before I mount it, and then the painter, he's priming, and then but I've had to replace, you know, some pieces as big as this table, you know, areas, so I've made regular trips to Home Depot for this on-primed pine siding, which is, like I said, significantly cheaper than the cedar products.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I guess so can I get a formal motion so that we can vote on a recommendation to the planning board?
I will move that we recommend to the planning board that this property, 109 Dennis Street, remain in the district.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. So, all right, thank you. Is there anything else? Anything needs to, anybody want us to, I will give a quick update on the CLG grant applications. Isaac and I will be meeting with Brandy Laughlin from the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources on Monday to talk about, I put in a letter of interest for both of the grants, both for having money to do survey and for some training, and so we will talk with her on Monday to just discuss our applications, discuss what our applications need, and I think the applications themselves are due like December 1st or something like that, so. Still moving forward, yes.
Can I make a request that somehow we find budget without going to the state to make up little cards that have the, what do we call them? The things that would need to be certain.
Purpose and intent?
Yes, purpose and intent cards, so that everybody had one at their station, so we wouldn't have to go through the embarrassment or the fishing process that goes on. Can we do that? Is that
Like I
something
did.
that we could do, sir?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have known anything about that
Yes.
until that happened.
Well, when we had our paper copies,
Yes.
we would have our paper copies of everything. It was on every single front page of the application, or the staff report.
Yep.
So now it's just, and John Wyckoff had cut it out of the piece of paper and had it taped to his notebook or to the outside of something or other, so he always had it there. But I think that's an
We could
excellent,
upgrade that.
I think that's an excellent idea.
It's not so important for ourselves, but if, and it doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, you hate it. If anything ever came back with a lawyer bringing in something and shaking the pile of paper at you, and you've neglected to do that, you may have stayed home that week.
I think that's an excellent idea, thank you.
It also, I think it helps if you don't just state the part that's on the piece of paper, that you actually give a little bit behind it. Sometimes you'll hear Dave, when he gives his findings of fact, he will cite what's actually on the piece of paper, but then he'll embellish with a little more reasoning behind it. Larry, you did a little bit of that tonight. So it is a helpful thing to do, because it gives color and wraps up the discussion in some
2
ways.
years from now, maybe I'll make a motion.
Just start with the word because.
Yes, yes. All
So
right,
moved?
thank you. Seconded?
Yes.
All right.
Out of here?
Thank you all, good night.